I still remember the sound of their laughter. Sharp. Cutting. The kind that echoes in your chest long after the room goes quiet. I was 74 years old when I told my family I was going to climb a mountain. Alone. They didn't just doubt me. They laughed at me. Called me senile. Suggested therapy. Treated me like a confused old woman who'd lost her mind along with her husband. But 6 weeks later, I was standing at the summit of Mount Washington, one of the most dangerous mountains in North America, tears freezing on my face, proving every single one of them wrong. This isn't just a story about climbing a mountain. It's about what happens when the world tells you you're too old, too weak, too broken to matter anymore. It's about the moment you decide to stop living for everyone else and start living for yourself. How does a 74-year-old widow with arthritis and no climbing experience go from being laughed at over dinner to standing on top of a mountain? What made me risk everything when everyone said I'd fail? And what did I find at the summit that changed everything? Before I answer that, you need to understand where this really began. Not at that dinner table. Not even at the base of the mountain. It started decades earlier, with a photograph, a broken promise, and a version of myself I thought I'd lost forever. I still remember the sound of their laughter. Sharp. Cutting. The kind that echoes in your chest long after the room goes quiet. I was 74 years old, sitting at my daughter's dining table, surrounded by my children and grandchildren, and I had just told them I was going to climb a mountain. Alone. They thought I was joking. Then they thought I was losing my mind. But I wasn't joking. And I wasn't losing anything. For the first time in decades, I was finding something. Something I thought I'd buried with my husband 6 months earlier. My name is Margaret. And this is the story of how I stopped living for everyone else and started living for myself. This is the story of how I proved them all wrong. But more than that, this is the story of how I proved something to myself. If you've ever felt invisible, dismissed, or too old to chase a dream, stay with me. Because what happened on that mountain changed everything. And I mean everything. It started 3 weeks after the funeral. I was sorting through Robert's things, the way widows do, touching shirts that still smelled like him, holding books he'd never finish. The house was too quiet. Too empty. Every room reminded me of what I'd lost. That's when I found it. The old photograph. Faded, creased at the corners, tucked inside a book about New England hiking trails. The two of us, maybe 30 years younger, standing at the base of Mount Washington. We were smiling. Young. Full of plans. Full of promises we'd never kept. We'd promised each other we'd climb it together one day. When the kids were grown. When we had time. When life slowed down. When Robert retired. When we could finally do something just for us. But life never slowed down. The kids needed us. Then the grandkids. Robert's business demanded more hours. My aging parents required constant care. There was always something. Always someone who needed us more than we needed that mountain. More than we needed each other, it seemed sometimes. I remember the year we almost did it. I'd even bought hiking boots. Robert had circled dates on the calendar. But then Jennifer's marriage fell apart and she moved back home with 2 small children. The boots stayed in the closet. The calendar got thrown away. Next year, Robert had said, kissing my forehead. I promise, Maggie. Next year we'll do it. Next year turned into 5 years. Then 10. Then 20. And then Robert died. Sudden heart attack. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. One morning he was drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, and by afternoon he was gone forever. I held that photograph for hours that day. And something cracked open inside me. Not grief this time. Something sharper. Something that had been building for decades. Anger, maybe. Or regret. Or both. I'd spent 52 years being a good wife. A devoted mother. A doting grandmother. I'd put everyone first. I'd smiled and cooked and cleaned and supported and sacrificed. I'd swallowed my own dreams so everyone else could chase theirs. And what did I have to show for it? An empty house. An empty calendar. An empty future. A closet full of clothes for a life I no longer had. A kitchen that cooked meals for one. I looked at that photograph and I heard Robert's voice in my head, clear as day. "We'll do it next year, Maggie. I promise." Next year never came for Robert. But I was still here. Still breathing. Still capable of walking, of moving, of doing something more than waiting to die in a chair watching television reruns. That's when I decided. I would climb that mountain. Not for Robert. Not to honor his memory, though that was part of it. For me. For the version of myself I'd abandoned decades ago when I became someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's caretaker. I would climb it for the girl who'd once dreamed of adventure. The woman who'd been buried under years of responsibility. I knew they wouldn't understand. But I didn't expect them to laugh. The dinner was Jennifer's idea. My oldest daughter. 48, divorced, overprotective. She'd been worried about me since the funeral, calling every day, stopping by with casseroles I didn't eat, suggesting grief counseling groups and widow support meetings. She thought getting the family together would lift my spirits. A normal Sunday dinner. Just like we used to have when Robert was alive. She was wrong. We were halfway through dessert, my grandson talking about college applications, my granddaughter showing everyone pictures from her dance recital, when I said it. Casual, like I was mentioning a doctor's appointment or a book club meeting. I've decided to climb Mount Washington. I'm leaving in 2 months. The table went silent. Completely silent. Even the kids stopped talking. All eyes turned to me. Then my son-in-law chuckled. A nervous, disbelieving sound that broke the tension. Then my grandson laughed. Then Jennifer. Then everyone was laughing. Not with me. At me. "Mom, you can't be serious," Jennifer said, still smiling like I'd told a joke. "I am." The smile faded. "You're 74 years old." "I'm aware." "You have arthritis. You take blood pressure medication. You can barely carry groceries up the front steps without getting winded." "I'll train. I've already started." More laughter. My youngest son, David, shook his head. "Mom, this isn't healthy. You're grieving. You're not thinking clearly. You need to talk to someone. A professional." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years." Jennifer reached across the table, her hand covering mine. That pitying look. That concerned daughter look I'd come to hate. The look that said I was fragile. Broken. Incapable. "Mom, we love you. But this is dangerous. You could get hurt. You could have a heart attack. You could die up there. People die on that mountain every year. I could die sitting on my couch." "That's different." "Is it?" "Because that's how your father died. Sitting down. Safe. Comfortable. Dead." The table went quiet again. This time, the silence was uncomfortable. Angry. "That's not fair," Jennifer said softly. "None of this is fair. But I'm doing it anyway." The conversation devolved from there. Concerns about my mental health. Suggestions that I see a therapist. Offers to take me on a nice, safe vacation instead. Somewhere warm. Somewhere flat. Somewhere old people were supposed to go. My granddaughter, sweet 16-year-old Emma, tried to be supportive. I think it's cool, Grandma. When I'm old like you, I hope I'm still doing stuff. Old like you. Even the kindness stung. David suggested I was having some kind of breakdown. Jennifer said I was being selfish, that I wasn't thinking about how my death would affect them. My son-in-law stayed quiet, but I could see the judgment in his eyes. By the end of the night, I'd been dismissed, patronized, and pitted. No one took me seriously. No one asked why I wanted to do this. They just assumed I was a confused old woman making reckless decisions because I couldn't handle my grief. Because I was weak. Because I was old. I drove home in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. And as I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Determination. Pure, burning determination. I would climb that mountain. And I would do it alone. And I would prove every single one of them wrong. I started training the next morning. 4:30 a.m. Before the sun rose. Before the neighbors could see me. Before anyone could stop me or lecture me or laugh at me again. I laced up the old sneakers I'd worn maybe twice in the past decade and stepped outside. The air was cold, biting against my skin. October in New England. My knees ached before I even reached the end of the driveway. But I kept walking. That first week was brutal. My body screamed at me. My hips, my back, my lungs. Everything hurt. I could barely make it around the block without stopping to catch my breath. My chest felt tight. My legs felt like concrete. More than once, I thought about giving up. About admitting they were right. About accepting that I was too old, too weak, too broken. But then I'd remember their laughter. That pitying look in Jennifer's eyes. The way they'd dismissed me like I was a child having a tantrum. And I'd keep walking. By the second week, I could make it 2 blocks. Then 3. Then around the entire neighborhood. My body still hurt, but differently. Like it was waking up after a long sleep. Like muscles I'd forgotten I had were remembering their purpose. I started going to the gym. A dusty community center with old equipment and a few early morning regulars. Mostly retirees like me, but none of them were training to climb a mountain. They did gentle yoga. Water aerobics. Chair exercises. I was on the treadmill, increasing the incline every week, sweating through my shirt, gasping for air like a fish out of water. The young trainer, a kid named Tyler with too much energy and 2 white teeth, approached me one morning. He looked concerned. Like I might collapse right there on his equipment. "Ma'am, you doing okay? You've been really pushing yourself. I don't want you to get hurt. I'm training." "For what?" "A climb." He nodded, clearly not understanding. "Like, a hiking trail?" "That's great. Low-impact exercise is perfect for a mountain." He blinked. "You mean, like, a real mountain? With elevation and everything?" "Yes. Mount Washington." "In New Hampshire?" "That Mount Washington? Is there another one?" His expression shifted. Concern. Disbelief. Pity. The same look I'd seen at that dinner table. "How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?" 74. "And you're going to climb. Does your doctor know you're doing this?" I didn't answer. I just turned the treadmill speed up and kept walking. He stood there for a moment, mouth open, then walked away shaking his head. I stopped telling people what I was doing after that. It was easier that way. Let them think I was just trying to stay active. Let them assume I was grieving in my own quiet way. Let them believe I was doing what old widows were supposed to do, gentle exercise, safe hobbies, waiting for the end. But every morning, I woke up with purpose. Every blister, every sore muscle, every moment of exhaustion was proof that I was still capable. Still strong. Still here. Still alive. I started researching YouTube videos of people climbing Mount Washington. Online forums where hikers shared advice and horror stories. I read about altitude sickness, weather patterns, necessary gear. I learned about layering, hydration, pacing. I took notes like I was studying for the most important exam of my life. Because I was. I learned that Mount Washington had the worst weather in the world. That the wind at the summit could reach over 200 miles per hour. That people had died from exposure, from falling, from underestimating the mountain. I learned that the average age of climbers was 35. That most people trained for months. That even experienced hikers turned back when conditions got bad. I learned that I was probably insane for attempting this. But I didn't stop. And then I went shopping. The outdoor gear store was overwhelming. Rows and rows of jackets, boots, backpacks. Everything technical and expensive and covered in words I didn't understand. Waterproof. Breathable. Gore-Tex, merino wool. A young salesman approached me, all smiles and enthusiasm. College kid, probably worked there for the employee discount. Can I help you find something? I need gear for a mountain climb. Oh, awesome. Is this for a family member? Son? Grandson? It's for me. His smile faltered. Just for a second. But I saw it. That flicker of doubt. That moment of confusion. Okay, what kind of climb are we talking about? Mount Washington. Solo. In 6 weeks. He stared at me. You're serious? Very. Ma'am, I don't mean to be rude, but that's a serious climb. It's not a walk in the park. The weather up there is unpredictable. Dangerous. People die on that mountain every year. So I've heard. Can you help me or not? He hesitated. I could see him calculating. Should he refuse? Should he try to talk me out of it? Should he get his manager? Then, to his credit, he didn't argue. He helped me pick out boots, a jacket rated for extreme cold, trekking poles, a pack. He showed me how to adjust everything, how to break in the boots, how to pack efficiently. He recommended thermal layers, waterproof gloves, a hat that would stay on in high winds. As I was checking out, my credit card nearly rejected from the total, he handed me a card. A local mountaineering group. They do training climbs. Smaller mountains first. Might be worth reaching out. Going solo for your first climb is, well, it's not recommended. I thanked him. I didn't tell him I wasn't interested in groups. This wasn't about making friends or proving I could keep up with others. This was about proving something to myself. I spent the next 4 weeks training harder than I'd ever trained for anything in my life. I wore the boots around the house until they molded to my feet. I packed and repacked the backpack, learning the weight, adjusting the straps. I practiced with the trekking poles until they felt like extensions of my arms. I hiked every local trail I could find. Started small, flat paths, easy terrain. Then worked my way up. Steeper inclines. Rockier paths. I'd come home exhausted, blistered, sometimes crying from the pain. But I'd wake up the next morning and do it again. Jennifer called one day. Mom, you seem better. More like yourself. I'm glad you're getting out, going for walks. It's healthy. I almost told her. Almost said, I'm not going for walks. I'm training to climb a mountain. But I didn't. Let her think what she wanted. 6 weeks after that dinner, I told Jennifer I was going on a trip. I didn't tell her where. I didn't tell her why. I just said I needed some time away. A change of scenery. Some space to clear my head. She was relieved. She thought I was finally moving on. Taking a vacation. Maybe visiting an old friend. Maybe going to one of those widow retreat things. I didn't correct her. I booked a small cabin near the base of Mount Washington. I arranged for a guide, someone experienced and highly recommended. I'd swallowed my pride and admitted I needed help. Not to climb, but to stay alive while I did it. I packed my gear, double-checked my supplies, and tried not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. Tried not to think about falling. Freezing. Dying alone on a mountain because I was too stubborn to admit I was too old for this. The night before I left, I stood in front of the mirror. Really looked at myself. I looked old. Wrinkled. Tired. My hair was more gray than brown now. My hands were spotted and veined. My body sagged in places it used to be firm. This body had carried 3 children. Nursed them through fevers and nightmares. This body had nursed a dying husband through cancer treatments before the heart attack took him anyway. This body had survived 7 decades of living. And now it was going to carry me up a mountain. I whispered to my reflection. You can do this. I didn't entirely believe it. But I said it anyway. Because sometimes you have to lie to yourself until it becomes true. The drive to New Hampshire took 6 hours. I listened to oldies on the radio, hummed along to songs Robert used to sing when we'd drive to the beach in summer. The landscape shifted as I drove. Flat fields gave way to rolling hills, then dense forests, then finally, the mountains. When I saw Mount Washington for the first time in person, my stomach dropped. It was massive. Intimidating. The summit was shrouded in clouds, distant and unreachable. I pulled over at a scenic overlook and just stared. What was I doing? I was a 74-year-old widow with arthritic knees and no climbing experience. This was insane. Reckless. Stupid. Jennifer was right. David was right. They were all right. I should turn around. Go home. Admit I was being foolish. Admit I was just a scared old woman having a crisis. But then I thought about the rest of my life. The real rest of it. 10 years? 20 if I was lucky? Quiet. Small. Safe. Waiting for grandchildren to visit. Waiting for someone to need me. Waiting for my body to give out. Waiting to die. No. I got back in the car and kept driving. The cabin was small but cozy. Wooden. Remote. No neighbors. Just me and the mountain. I unpacked my gear, laid everything out on the bed. Boots. Jacket. Poles. First aid kit. Energy bars. Water purification tablets. Emergency whistle. It all looked so official. So real. This was really happening. I met my guide the next morning at a local diner. His name was Ben. 50-something, weathered face, kind eyes. He looked exactly like someone who'd spent their life in the mountains. He didn't look surprised when he saw me. I'd sent him my age when I booked, half expecting him to decline. Half hoping he would, maybe, so I'd have an excuse to back out. But he'd agreed. And here he was. Margaret? That's me. He shook my hand. Firm grip. Calloused. You ready for this? I don't know. He smiled. Actually smiled. Good answer. People who say yes usually aren't. The cocky ones are the ones who get hurt. We'll take it slow. One step at a time. If you need to stop, we stop. If you need to turn back, we turn back. No shame in that. No judgment. I nodded. But I knew I wouldn't turn back. I couldn't. Not after coming this far. Not after everything. We spent the first day doing a short training hike. Just a few miles, low elevation. He watched how I moved, how I breathed, how I handled the terrain. He adjusted my pack, showed me how to use the poles properly, taught me a breathing technique for steep inclines. You've been training, he said. Not a question. A statement. Every day for 2 months. It shows. You move well. Better than some people half your age I've guided. That night, back at the cabin, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Real pride. Not in what I'd accomplished yet, but in the fact that I was here. That I'd gotten this far. That I hadn't given up. I called Jennifer. Told her I was safe, having a nice time, eating well. She sounded happy. Relieved. I didn't tell her where I was. I didn't tell her what I was about to do. Some things you have to do alone. Some things no one else can understand. Summit day. We started at 4:30 in the morning. The sky was still dark, stars fading as the first hint of dawn touched the horizon. The air was cold enough to sting my lungs, to make my eyes water. Ben went through the checklist one more time. Gear. Water. Food. Emergency supplies. Weather report. He looked at me seriously, his headlamp illuminating his face in the darkness. This is your last chance to change your mind. No judgment. We can do a different hike. Something easier. Or we can reschedule. Wait for better conditions. I zipped up my jacket. Tightened my pack straps. Gripped my poles. Let's go. The first hour was manageable. The trail was well-marked, gradual. My legs felt strong. My breathing was steady. Other hikers passed us, younger, faster, probably wondering what an old woman was doing on this trail at this hour. Some glanced at me with curiosity. Others didn't seem to notice. But I noticed them. Their youth. Their confidence. Their strong legs and easy breathing. But then the trail got steeper. Rockier. My pace slowed. My lungs burned. Every step required intention, effort, will. I focused on Ben's back, on the rhythm of his steps, on the tap-tap-tap of his poles against the rocks. One foot in front of the other. That's all I had to do. One foot. Then the other. Then repeat. We stopped for a break after 2 hours. I was sweating despite the cold. My hands were shaking. My legs felt like rubber. Ben handed me water, an energy bar. How are you feeling? Tired. Pain? Everywhere. He smiled. That's normal. That means you're alive. You're doing great. Really great. I didn't feel great. I felt old. Weak. Foolish. I felt like I was about to collapse. Like my heart might explode. Like I was making the biggest mistake of my life. But I kept going. By midday, we were above the tree line. The landscape changed completely. Barren. Rocky. Windswept. Like another planet. The temperature dropped dramatically. I added another layer. My fingers were numb even inside gloves. My face felt frozen. And then the wind hit. It came out of nowhere, a wall of force that nearly knocked me off my feet. I gasped, stumbled. Ben grabbed my arm, steadying me. We need to be careful here. The wind can be dangerous. Stay low. Keep your center of gravity down. If it gets too bad, we turn back. I nodded, unable to speak. Every breath was a fight. Every step felt impossible. The wind screamed around us, through us. It felt angry. Like the mountain was trying to push us back. We passed another group of hikers descending. They looked exhausted, relieved to be heading down. One of them, a young woman maybe 30, stopped when she saw me. "Oh my God, you're amazing. You're almost there. Keep going." Her encouragement felt like a lifeline. Like someone had thrown me a rope. I nodded, managed a smile. We kept climbing. The final stretch was the hardest thing I've ever done. Harder than childbirth. Harder than losing Robert. Harder than anything. The trail was steep, exposed, brutal. My legs felt like lead. My lungs screamed. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Every muscle in my body begged me to stop. I thought about Robert. About the photograph. About all the years we'd wasted saying next year. I thought about the kids. About their laughter. About their doubt. And I thought about that young Margaret in the photograph. Full of dreams she'd never chased. Full of potential she'd never realized. I wasn't doing this for them anymore. I was doing this for her. For the woman I should have been. For the woman I still could be. One more step. Then another. Then another. My vision blurred. From sweat. From tears. From exhaustion. And then, suddenly, impossibly, we were there. The summit. I stood there, gasping, shaking, tears streaming down my face, freezing on my cheeks. The wind whipped around me, nearly knocking me over again. But I didn't care. The view stretched endlessly in every direction. Mountains, valleys, forests, sky. The whole world laid out below me. Ben stepped back, giving me space. Giving me this moment. This victory. I'd done it. Against every doubt, every fear, every person who'd told me I couldn't, every part of myself that agreed with them. I'd climbed a mountain at 74 years old. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. The signal was weak, but it was there. I opened the camera, held it up, and hit record. "Hi, everyone. It's me. I'm at the summit of Mount Washington. I just wanted you to know that I did it. I climbed a mountain. Alone. Well, with a guide. But I did it. At 74. My voice cracked. And I've never felt more alive in my entire life. I've never felt more like myself. And I just wanted to say, it's never too late. It's never, ever too late. I sent the video to the family group chat. Then I turned off my phone. This moment was mine. Just mine. I stayed at the summit for 20 minutes. As long as Ben said was safe. I sat on a rock, looked out at the world, and felt something shift inside me. Like a door opening. Like chains breaking. Like I'd been holding my breath for 74 years and finally, I could breathe. The descent was harder than the climb. My knees ached with every step. My muscles trembled. I slipped twice, caught myself. My body was done. Completely done. But my spirit? My spirit was soaring. We made it back to the base by evening. I was filthy, exhausted, every inch of my body screaming in pain. And I'd never felt better. Ben walked me back to my cabin. You did something remarkable today, Margaret. Something most people will never do. And you did it with more grace and determination than climbers half your age. Thank you for helping me do it. I didn't do anything. That was all you. Every step. Every breath. That was you. After he left, I showered, washing away the dirt and sweat and exhaustion. I looked at myself in the mirror. Same wrinkles. Same gray hair. Same old body. But different eyes. Stronger eyes. Prouder eyes. Eyes that had seen the top of a mountain. Eyes that had seen what was possible. I checked my phone. 17 missed calls. 32 texts. All from the family. Jennifer, MOM, what? David, are you serious right now? You climbed a mountain? My grandson, Grandma, that's literally insane. You're a legend. Emma, Grandma, you're my hero. Mixed reactions. Shock. Disbelief. Concern. Anger. A few congratulations buried in the worry. Jennifer wanted me to call immediately. David wanted to know if I'd lost my mind. But I didn't need their approval anymore. I'd found something bigger than approval. Something more important than validation. I'd found myself. I stayed at the cabin for 3 more days. Resting. Reflecting. Planning. Because here's what I realized on that mountain. I'd spent 74 years living small. Playing it safe. Putting everyone else first. Making myself smaller so others could feel bigger. Sacrificing my dreams so others could chase theirs. And I'd been miserable. Not always. Not completely. I'd had good moments, happy years. I'd loved my husband. I loved my children. I don't regret my life. But I regret the dreams I never chased. The adventures I never took. The woman I never became. That mountain taught me something. It's never too late. Never too old. Never too anything. If you want something, if you dream something, if there's a voice inside you whispering what if? Listen to it. Chase it. Do it. Everyone will have an opinion. Everyone will tell you all the reasons you can't. All the ways you'll fail. All the dangers. All the impossibilities. Let them talk. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Then prove them wrong. When I got home, Jennifer was waiting on my porch. She'd driven 3 hours. She looked angry, worried, relieved all at once. Mom, you can't just disappear and climb a mountain without telling anyone. I told you I was going on a trip. You didn't say you were doing something that could have killed you. You didn't say you were climbing one of the most dangerous mountains in the country. Would you have let me go if I'd told you? She paused. No. Exactly. You could have died. But I didn't. You could have. But I didn't. We stared at each other. Then her face crumpled. She started crying, really crying. I was so scared. When I saw that video, when I realized where you were, what you were doing, I thought I was going to lose you too. I thought you were going to die on that mountain and I'd never see you again, and the last thing we'd talked about was casseroles and grief counseling, and I'd never told you that you what? That I'm proud of you. That you're braver than I've ever been. That I wish I had your courage. I pulled her into a hug. Jennifer, I'm not going anywhere. But I'm also not going to stop living. Not anymore. I wasted too many years doing that already. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. I don't understand why you did this. I know. And that's okay. You don't have to understand. But you do have to accept it. Over the next few weeks, things settled. The family was still processing. Some were proud. David sent me an article about elderly athletes and said maybe I wasn't completely crazy. Some were angry. My son-in-law thought I was being reckless and selfish. Some still thought I'd lost my mind. But something had shifted. They looked at me differently. Not as a fragile widow who needed protecting. Not as someone to pity or manage. But as a person. Someone with agency. Someone capable. Someone who'd done something extraordinary. My grandson asked me about the climb. Wanted to see pictures. Told his friends his grandma was a badass. Showed my video at school for a presentation on inspiration. Emma asked if she could come with me on my next adventure. When I'm older, she said. When I'm like 18 or whatever. Can we go somewhere together? That made me cry. But the best part? The quiet moments alone. When I looked at that photograph of Robert and me, I didn't feel regret anymore. I didn't feel anger. I felt gratitude. For the life we'd had. For the time we'd shared. For the love we'd built. And for the mountain I'd finally climbed. For both of us. 6 months later, I was planning another trip. Patagonia this time. A glacier hike. Something I'd read about in a magazine in a doctor's waiting room. Jennifer found out and, predictably, lost her mind again. Mom, you're not seriously doing this again. I am. This is becoming a pattern. I hope so. What if something happens to you? Then something happens. But at least I'll have lived. Really lived. I can't lose you. You're not going to lose me. But you can't keep me in a cage either. Even if it's a cage made of love. She was quiet for a long time. Then, can I come with you? I stared at her. What? To Patagonia. Can I come? I've never done anything like this. I've never been brave enough. But maybe it's time. I smiled. Really smiled. I'd love that. She didn't end up coming. Work got in the way. Kids got in the way. Life got in the way. But she'd asked. That was something. I went to Patagonia alone. And it was incredible. I'm 75 now. My knees still ache. I still take blood pressure medication. My doctor thinks I'm insane. I still look like an old woman when I look in the mirror. But I don't feel like one. I feel like someone who's finally, after 7.5 decades, figured out what it means to be alive. To really live. Not just exist. Not just wait. But live. I have a list now. A list of places I want to go. Things I want to see. Adventures I want to have. Some are big. Some are small. But they're all mine. I'm learning Spanish. I want to hike the Camino de Santiago. I'm taking photography classes. I want to capture the world I'm finally seeing. I joined a hiking group. Other people my age who refuse to slow down. We meet every weekend. Sometimes we do easy trails. Sometimes we challenge ourselves. We share stories. We encourage each other. We don't let age define us. Emma came on a hike with us last month. She struggled more than I did. She complained. She wanted to quit. But she made it to the top, and when she did, she hugged me and said, "Now I get it, Grandma. Now I understand." So here's what I want you to take away from my story. If you're sitting there right now, thinking about something you want to do but haven't because you're too old, too tired, too scared, too broke, too busy, too anything, stop making excuses. Stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for the perfect time. Stop waiting for other people to believe in you. Stop waiting for your life to be less complicated. The perfect time doesn't exist. Life will always be complicated. Other people will always doubt you. You will always have reasons not to do it. Do it anyway. Will it be hard? Yes. Will people doubt you? Absolutely. Will you have moments where you want to quit? Every single day. Will your body hurt? Will you cry? Will you question everything? Yes, yes, yes. But on the other side of that fear, that doubt, that pain, there's something incredible waiting. There's you. The real you. The version of yourself you've been too afraid to become. The person you were always meant to be. I climbed a mountain at 74. Not because I was special. Not because I was brave. Not because I was particularly athletic or strong or capable. I did it because I decided that I'd rather fail trying than succeed at playing it safe. Because I realized that the only thing worse than dying on that mountain was dying slowly in my living room, full of regret and what-ifs. Everyone laughed when I said I'd do it. And you know what? I don't blame them. It sounded ridiculous. It was ridiculous. A 74-year-old widow with no experience deciding to climb a mountain. But I did it anyway. And now? Now I'm the one smiling. Now I'm the one planning the next adventure. Now I'm the one living a life that feels worth living. I get messages sometimes. From other women. Other widows. Other people who feel invisible, forgotten, too old to matter. They tell me my story inspired them. That they're going back to school, or traveling alone, or finally writing that book, or leaving that job, or doing that thing they've been afraid to do for decades. And every single time, it makes me cry. Because that's what this is really about. Not climbing mountains. Not proving anything to anyone. It's about remembering that you're still here. Still breathing. Still capable of change and growth and becoming. Your life isn't over just because you're old. It's not over just because you've lost someone. It's not over just because you've spent decades being who everyone else needed you to be. It's only over when you decide it is. When you stop trying. When you accept that this is all there is. I refuse to accept that. I refuse to accept that my life was supposed to be over at 74 just because my husband died and my children were grown and society told me I was supposed to fade quietly into the background. I climbed a mountain instead. And you know what I found at the top? Not just a view. Not just a sense of accomplishment. I found myself. The version of me that existed before I became someone's wife, someone's mother, someone's caretaker. I found Margaret. Just Margaret. And she's pretty incredible. There's a moment that happened on that mountain that I haven't told anyone about yet. Not even Ben. Not even my family. It was about 2 hours from the summit. The hardest part of the climb. I was exhausted, in pain, barely able to breathe. I stopped on a flat rock to rest and I looked down at the trail behind me. I could see how far I'd come. Miles and miles. Thousands of feet of elevation. All that distance, all that effort, all that pain. And I realized something. I was already successful. Even if I never made it to the summit. Even if I had to turn back right there. I'd already done something incredible. I'd already proven something important. I'd proven that I was still capable of growth, of change, of doing hard things, of surprising myself. The summit was just a bonus. And that's what I want you to understand. Whatever your mountain is, and we all have one, you don't have to reach the summit to be successful. You just have to start climbing. Maybe your mountain is leaving a bad relationship. Maybe it's going back to school. Maybe it's starting that business. Maybe it's traveling alone. Maybe it's just learning to put yourself first for once in your life. Whatever it is, start. Take one step. Then another. And if you never reach the top, if you have to turn back, if it's harder than you thought and you don't finish, you're still braver than everyone sitting at the bottom making excuses. You're still climbing. And that's what matters. I think about that dinner table sometimes. About their laughter. About how small they made me feel. How invisible. How dismissed. And I don't feel angry anymore. I feel grateful. Because their doubt became my fuel. Their laughter became my motivation. Their certainty that I would fail made my success that much sweeter. So if people are doubting you right now, if they're laughing at your dreams, if they're telling you all the reasons you can't, good. Let them. Use it. Channel it. Prove them wrong. But more importantly, prove yourself right. Prove to yourself that you're capable. That you're strong. That you're not done yet. That your best years aren't behind you. Mine weren't. And I'm 75 years old. If I can climb a mountain at 74, you can do whatever it is you've been telling yourself you can't do. I promise you that. I absolutely promise you that. The only question is, will you? Will you take that first step? Will you stop making excuses? Will you stop waiting for permission or the perfect moment or for someone else to believe in you? Or will you look back in 10 years with even more regret, wishing you'd been brave enough to try? I spent too many years with regret. I'm done with that now. I'm done waiting. I'm done playing small. I'm done letting fear make my decisions. I'm living. Finally, truly living. And it's terrifying and exhilarating and painful and beautiful all at once. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Last week, I got a letter. An actual handwritten letter in the mail. From a woman named Carol. She's 72. A widow like me. She'd seen my video somehow, shared by a friend's daughter on Facebook. She wrote, "I've been sitting in my house for 3 years since my husband died. Waiting. Just waiting. I didn't even know what I was waiting for. But your story woke something up in me. I've always wanted to see the northern lights. Everyone says I'm too old, that it's too cold, that I should just watch videos online. But I'm going. I booked the trip yesterday. Thank you for reminding me that I'm still alive." I cried reading that letter. I cried because I understood exactly what she meant. That feeling of waiting. Of being invisible. Of letting the world tell you what you can and can't do. And I cried because she's going to see the northern lights. She's going to have that experience. She's going to create that memory. She's going to feel alive again. Because of my story. Because I climbed a mountain. That's bigger than the summit. That's more important than proving my family wrong. That's the real victory. If this story inspires even one person to stop waiting and start living, then every blister, every moment of pain, every second of doubt was worth it. So here's my challenge to you. Not to climb a mountain, unless that's your dream. But to do something that scares you. Something that other people say you can't do. Something that makes you feel alive again. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to matter to you. Maybe it's taking a painting class. Maybe it's going to dinner alone. Maybe it's finally telling someone how you feel. Maybe it's booking that trip. Maybe it's ending that relationship. Maybe it's starting that project you've been putting off for years. Whatever it is, do it. Soon. Not someday. Not next year. Not when things are less complicated. Now. While you're still here. While you still can. Because life is shorter than you think. And regret is heavier than any backpack I carried up that mountain. I'm not special. I'm not superhuman. I'm just a woman who got tired of being small. Who got tired of waiting. Who decided that the rest of her life was going to be the best of her life. And if I can do it at 74 with arthritis and blood pressure medication and a body that's seen better days, you can do whatever you've been telling yourself you can't. You absolutely can. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt too old or too scared or too anything to chase something that matters, leave a comment. Tell me your dream. Tell me what you've been putting off. Tell me what your mountain is. Because I promise you, it's not too late. It's never too late. And I'll be here cheering you on. And if you want to see more stories about people who refused to let age define them, who chose courage over comfort, who proved everyone wrong and proved themselves right, subscribe. Hit that button. Because this is just the beginning of my story. I've got more mountains to climb. More adventures to live. More limits to break. And I'd love for you to come along for the ride. I'm planning a trek through the Himalayas next year. Maybe some volcano hiking in Iceland after that. There's a kayaking expedition in Patagonia I've been researching. My bucket list gets longer every day instead of shorter. Because I finally understand something. Life doesn't end when you get old. It doesn't end when you lose someone. It doesn't end when your children grow up. It ends when you stop trying. When you stop growing. When you stop believing you're capable of more. And I'm not done yet. Not even close. This is Margaret, signing off from somewhere between where I was and where I'm going. 75 years old. Arthritis in both knees. Blood pressure medication in my bag. And a heart full of dreams I'm finally brave enough to chase. And trust me, the view from here is incredible. So stop reading this and start climbing. Whatever your mountain is, take that first step today. Right now. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until you're ready because you'll never feel ready. Just start. The summit is waiting. And so is the version of yourself you've been too afraid to become. Everyone laughed when I said I'd climb a mountain at 74. But I had the last laugh. Because I did it. And it changed everything. Now it's your turn. What are you waiting for?